Welcome back to the Out of the Rough podcast presented by We Know Fantasy. As always, my name is Nate with We Know Fantasy, and joining me this week is Parker. Parker, how are we doing today?
Hey, good to see you again. I appreciate you having me back.
Yes, sir. It's maybe a month or so ago you were on here with me,
Yeah,
and I think you gave out the DP World Tour winner that week.
I did. I did.
I forget exactly what week it was, but I faintly remember you giving out the winner that week. So it's awesome to have you back this week and hope for some repeated success here on the We Know Fantasy or the Out of the Rough podcast. Excuse me. Parker, what you been up
I
to
know.
since?
I will say I need your influence to hit the other tours because I don't normally bet the DP World Tour. So of course, when I join your podcast, I hit a winner. So it's just point me in the right direction. So
There
thanks
we
for
go.
bringing it back.
Batting 1,000 on the DP
Yeah,
World Tour. I mean, you're a better DP World Tour picker than I am at that rate. But Parker, what you been up to since?
not too much, man. Just like busy living. My fiance and I are getting ready to get married here in 6 weeks. So kind of getting some last minute wedding prep done and locked in on the PGA Tour season. I've had cold like last couple weeks, but still had a pretty good season. So it's crazy that we're down towards the end of it, but just living through the summer, man.
There we go. And you mentioned it right there. Somehow we're mid July already, the final major of the season here upon us. And, the season will be over before we know it. And then the standard every week of golf will be gone. We'll get our few hit or miss tournaments here and there and trickle ourselves into the new year before we know it. But, Parker, before we do move forward, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X or Twitter. My tagline is psmith412. So pretty straightforward there. That's where I put out all my stuff. Got a link to an Excel tracker where I track all my picks and units associated with picks and things of that nature. So you can check me out.
Easy enough. And as always, you can follow myself, Nate, on Twitter at WKFNate. Be sure to follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. Be sure to visit WeKnowFans.com for some more fantasy sports content. Visit baseball, basketball, football, NASCAR, golf, everything in between. We have you covered. On that website, you can find my Out of the Rough golf betting articles where I really go in depth each and every week of the DP World Tour, PGA Tour, as well as the LPGA majors. I know this is the final week for the PGA majors, but we still have one more LPGA major in a few weeks as well. The We Know Fantasy Podcast Network, wherever you listen to this one, for example, you can find the We Know Fantasy NASCAR podcast. Cody and Devin do what we do here, where they break down the track, track facts, who's good, who's where, things like we do here, just in NASCAR form. So be sure to check them out as well. And they do a fantastic job. They've made quite a bit of money along the way this betting season as well. But Parker, here we are. Final major of the season, of course. The Open Championship, Royal Troon this week. Uh, it's going to be a good one. I'm excited for it. I don't know if I'm just a little optimistic because what I was able to do last year with the 120-1 Brian Harman hit, paired that up with the Akshay Bhatia 35-1 over stateside. So hoping for a repeat this week. I do have someone 120-1 or longer on my betting card to hope for a bit of a repeat. But before we move forward, let's talk about Royal Churn here. We'll talk about the field and all of that. Royal Churn, of course, the last time we saw them was 2016, and what was the storied finish, the duel essentially between Henrik Stenson and Phil Mickelson, who were in a class
One of
of
the
their
best
own.
majors of all time.
It was
Really.
fantastic. I mean, so Henrik Stenson finished that tournament minus 20 over Phil Mickelson's minus 18, but then third place JB Holmes was what minus 6, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Stenson and Mickelson really battled out by themselves atop that leaderboard. So we'll hope for a closer board, but even if we have two guys further ahead opposed to just one guy dominated it, I'd be more than happy with that, unless that guy dominated is on my betting card as it was last year. 158 golfers from across the world in attendance this week. Of course, the top 50 of the OWGR, top 30 of the 2023 DP World Tour rankings. 16 spots were claimed via qualifying, which saw the likes of Justin Rose, Abraham Answer, Sam Horsfield, Matthew Southgate, among others, qualify for this week's event. Um, it does shape up to be the most top heavy of the majors we see each season because of all of the top 50 of the OWGR makes it no matter what. The only person not in this week would be Cam Davis, only because his victory at Rocket Mortgage put him in the top 50 post cutoff deadline. So everyone else makes it this week. 15 members of the Live Golf Tour here this week. Of course, you know the names by now: the John Rahms, Bryson DeChambos, Brooks Koepka, Joakim Niemans, the Cam Smith of the world. All those guys will be here this week. And one of the most notable absences, of course, Sergio Garcia, looking for major start 100. We'll have to wait until next year. He sits at number 99 as he kind of scrambled a bit for a sponsors in exception and did not get it. So he'll sit at 99 until next year. Of course, we mentioned it. Brian Harman, defending champion, won by 6 strokes last year at Royal Liverpool. Did so in demanding fashion. Nothing super sexy about what he did, but he did it efficiently, and no one was able to catch him last year en route to his first major victory. Of course, there's a slew of past champions. I won't go through the whole list because there's a dozen plus here, but just know Tiger Woods will be in the field this week. John Daly himself will be teeing it up. You know, we have the Ernie Els, the Darren Clarks, the Louis Oosthuizen, who just won on the Live Tour last week. Just a bunch of storied victories here among these guys. So Royal Troon, 152nd playing of the Open Championship this week, par 71 at 7,385 yards. Established in 1878, Royal Troon holds an extensive history in the world of golf. It was established as a 5-hole golf course designed by none other than George Strath and Willie Fernie 146 years ago. 1923, the first 18-hole venue was put into place by James Braid, excuse me. That same 18-hole layout essentially is what we play today at Royal Troon. It received its royal designation in 1978 when it commemorated its centennial anniversary. Quintessential links style golf course is what we're getting this week. Checks every box that you need to qualify for a links qualification. Sits on the coastline, exposed to wind and inclement weather to start off with. Features humps and hollows throughout its undulating fairways. This leads to constant uneven lies and unpredictable rollouts. Features your traditional deep pop bunkers that all or most of these UK links tracks do feature. They are strategically placed throughout the fairway and around the greens. Along with the pop bunkers, natural gorse bushes are featured throughout, primarily around the greens. But what sets Royal Troon apart from the rest of link style courses, what makes it its own unique outlet, is the very, very small greens this course features. The greens are essentially a quarter of the size of what we see at like St. Andrews. So they are very minuscule, and that is what makes Royal Troon Royal Troon. Added emphasis to fantastic approach shots as much as links already encourages that, but you got to find your way onto these very small greens, hitting the exact spots. So of course, around the green work, sand work, scrambling, all of that will be quintessential this week. Royal Troon is essentially split into 3 different, I guess you can say, 6-hole acts. We have Heaven, Purgatory, and Hell. Pretty simple. You can probably figure out what I'm going to talk about here. So the first 6 holes is known as Heaven. It's your very, not I want to say super easy, but this is where your scoring is done. You need to come out of the gate hot if you're on the front 9 to start this, and get yourself out in a good position. The stretch of holes plays downhill and features 3 par 4s under 400 yards and 2 scoreable par 5s. Of course, if weather scoring conditions are there. So the middle 6 holes, 7 through 12, is known as Purgatory. These holes play into the wind with significant penalties from wayward shots. This comes in the form of runouts into fairway pop bunkers and natural gorse bushes. The final 6 holes are known as Hell, and this is where golfers simply need to hold on. And if they escape these 6 holes at even par, they would be gladly accepting that nonetheless. So along with all of these, there's a bunch of featured holes, of course. Number 8 here at Royal Troon is known as quote unquote post stamp. Why is it called that? Very small green, of course. Elevated tee box that offers golfers a first-hand view of this very tiny green surrounded by deep pop bunkers. Very intimidating. It's a very popular site for triple bogeys, if not more. Ask Tiger Woods the last time he played here. Hole number 11 is known as the Railway and played as the most difficult par 4 on the entire PGA Tour in 2016. An out of bounds railroad runs throughout the right side of the hole and is in play on both off the tee and on approach. So since 2016, we have seen a few changes to this golf course. Simply, rollback, right? Added length because of modern technology and length of all these professional golfers. So 9 new tee boxes were built to add 200 yards to this course, roughly 200 yards. And the most notable changes came to holes number 4, which was elongated from a 555-yard par 5 to a now 600-yard behemoth of a hole, and number 17, which is already one of the most daunting par 3s in major championship golf, was pushed back to 242 yards. It will undoubtedly be a nervy test for contenders down the stretch on Sunday. Parker, anything here you want to add about this course, field, or anything before we move forward?
No, I mean, I think you did a great intro. I think the one piece that I noticed, I think when kind of doing my course due diligence before joining today, is that a lot of these courses that host major championship venues, you can play either, short with your landing areas or long with your landing areas with the driver off the tee. And I noticed something interesting with Troon is that it doesn't really benefit you to taking the dog leg on, because if you take the dog leg on, like how Rory or Xander or some of these bombers can at like a Valhalla and just eliminate all the trouble, they put these strategic pot bunkers at the ends of the 320-yard landing areas or whatever these dog leg corners would be. So where some of these other courses, I think you can kind of just tee it high and let it fly and avoid a lot of the trouble. And if you carry it 330, you're golden. But yeah, to your point, they have a ton of these really strategically placed pot bunkers. And I think that's why, it was a Henrik Stenson that kind of separated himself along with Phil, is that you have to be really on with your iron game and you have to play from the fairway, and you can't just kind of cut corners on the course. You have to be on in all aspects of your game. So I thought that was something that's really interesting, because I always look at the guys like Rory and Bryson, and if they can get an advantage by just carrying at 335, then you got to take that in consideration. But it doesn't really give you that advantage here, and that's why I think it's a really unique test, and why I'm excited to look at the entire field as an option, because everybody, if they have their week, they're in play.
Yeah, we again saw it last year in Link's play specifically. Brian Harman, he's no bomber by no means, but just putting your ball in the right spot, avoiding these troubles. And we heard the commentators talk about often last week of the Scottish, and Link style is played to keep your ball near the ground. They always joke, golf is, you're supposed to get the ball to the ground, not in the air. And, that's why you see a lot of, skip ups or ride the ground and things like that. So I think Royal Troon does a fantastic job in maybe magnifying that to an extent. Some of these courses, of course, will be receptive to the long and the plop and the rolls and all of that, but that's not how golf was made to play, and not how these courses are to follow. So, Parker, let's move on to our DFS adjustments for this week. This week, we have 6 monetary categories according to DraftKings pricing. We have the $10,000 plus, the 9s, the 8s, the 7s, the 6s, and the 5,900 and below. So 6 guys to talk about here. Parker, you have the floor here with your
Cool.
$10,000 plus price range. So who's it going to be?
Cool. So, this is tough, right? Because the easy answer is to just lead off with Scotty and say he's the guy that you can't turn down, right? But I do think that this specific tournament, this major, in comparison to the other 4 majors of the year, is a little different, just because you get a bigger break than you
100%.
did in those other majors by not taking Scotty. Like, I think the difference between Rory and Scotty was maybe like 400 or 600, where now it's, you get a $1,300 break by not taking Scotty now. So I think that's why I'm leading off with I think the 2 best options for me, because I'm so in love with the $7,000 and $8,000 range in this tournament field. I'm leading off with Xander and Rahm are kind of my 2 primary picks here. They're at the bottom of this tier, but I think every single one of these guys are fantastic fits, because like we talked about just a moment ago, it's not one skill set of a golfer that's required to win a course like this. So obviously, if you're looking at 6 of the best golfers in the world, any one of them can turn it on this week and win you the golf tournament. So I kind of like the idea of budgeting myself for more for down the road here. You could talk me into any one of these guys as your primary favorite in this section, for either price reason or form reason, right? I mean, Scotty's won 6 times this year. It's hard not to include someone that's won 6 times in your lineup, just as a safety net, right? But like I said, it being 12-8, I think I'm going to be one of the people, one of the few that kind of zag on Scotty this week, and I'm going to put my 2 primaries as Xander and Rahm. Rom hasn't won on Live yet, but he's been fantastic. He's in the top five like every week. He's second in the overall standings. He had a really good week or he had a really good off the tee week last week, which is, I think, a great sign for him. If he puts it in the fairway, he's going to give himself plenty of chances, and he's very cheap in comparison to Scotty and Rory. And then Xander, I mean, Xander had his like C game last week, and he was in the top 15. He's very, very good right now. And I think even at, 11-2, I think you could make a case that he's a little underpriced because why is he cheaper than Bryson? I think he's just so complete that I think that's kind of a value pick at 11-2 if there ever is a value pick at that price. So those are my two.
Yeah, Jake and I talk about it often. Xander Schauffele is course proof. I mean, he is arguably the most well-rounded golfer in the world. I mean, of course, Scotty Scheffler's in a world of his own as the best golfer in the world, but we know there's glaring issues with Scotty Scheffler, sometimes on the greens, things like that. Xander Schauffele, there never is a glaring issue with his game. He does everything to an almost elite level. So you're right. I mean, last week he struggled to make the cut, and then he still goes on for a T15. I think the stat is I think it's 15 events now that he's played this season outside of the Rain Short and AT&T Pebble Beach Pro Am. He has top 25 in all of 15 starts this season. So I love Xander Schauffele. I think he doesn't get the love as some of the guys around him. Of course, Scotty Scheffler winning 6 times this season. If you're going to play Scotty, no one's going to argue against you. You're spending up for a reason. You're getting the world number one, the best golfer there is in the world. By all means, go for it. If you want to talk about this, we'll be talking about later in those sevens, the sixes, and the 1,500 and below price range this week, and that allows you to do that with Scotty this week because there are cheaper options. Jon Rahm's a great shout. We didn't get to see him at the PGA because of an infected toe or something like that. But of course, Jon Rahm is Jon Rahm. Before he moved to Live, was part of that big three on the PGA Tour with Scotty and Rory and Jon Rahm. That was the three we talked about each and every week before Xander blew up on the scene this season. But I do love Jon Rahm this week. I think he's going to be a great ownership because we didn't get him a PGA and he's not playing his best golf on Live. But again, why would he play his best golf on Live when he has a $500 million contract? Nonetheless, just for showing up. But some great shouts there. I do love all of them. I even would go ahead and, as you mentioned, everyone's price range is here for a reason, right? They can all win this golf course or this golf event. Excuse me. But I do like Aberg again this week. I know he burned me last week, but I think that's a lot of people in this industry or in this I want to say industry, but playing DFS, playing on the outright market, have very short term memories. It's going to be fresh in their heads what Aberg may have done to them last week with, the falter on Sunday and all of this. And so Aberg has not shown up on a Sunday. There's no doubt about that. I think the last time he shot an under 70 round on a Sunday was the Masters. So that was 3-4 months ago. But he's still littering top 25. He has 11 top 25s in 15 events, 7 top 10s. And this is also doing so without showing up on Sundays, right? So eventually it's going to click for him. He is a world-class golfer, top 5 in the OWGR. Eventually it's going to come around and he's going to have a fantastic Sunday and he's going to run away with an event. He's still, 25 years old, still super young, still in his first full season on the PGA Tour. I don't think he's even been here technically for, I guess it's been over a year now, but full 4th season. It's coming, and this very well could be it. This could be the shining moment for an Aberg who goes on at a to 10-1 price range with everyone counting him out because he can't compete on a Sunday, quote unquote. I mean, people were saying this about Xander not too long ago as well, that he can't win a golf tournament that goes on to win a major himself. It's coming for Aberg, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was the week. And you can get a decent, like you said, a monetary discount for him, and I think an ownership because of what he did last week as well. All right, let's move on to the 9K price range. There's some great guys here. Parker, I'll kick this one off here. I'm going to lead right at the top and go with one of my tournament favorites in Collin Morikawa at 9-1 or 9-9, excuse me. Ownership, yes, probably rather high because you can, again, Collin Morikawa could very well be in that 10K price range and be looped in with everyone to win this golf tournament with the way he's playing recently. Let's see what he's done recently. Placed T4th last week at the Genesis Scottish Open, of course, link style golf course. Collin Morikawa 2020. What year did he win this? 21, I believe. The Open.
20 actually.
But a former Open champion. Great performance last week at the Scottish Open. T13 Travelers, T14 US Open, second Memorial, 4th Charles Schwab, T4 PGA Championship, ninth of the RBC Heritage, and T3rd of the Masters. Just an absolute, tear of a run here for Colin Morikawa. We know what he brings to the table, right? He's one of the most accurate drivers of the ball. He's going to find himself in the middle of the fairway each and every time. He is fantastic from 150 to 200 on the approach. Around the green, he's being fantastic this season. Off the tee, bogey avoidance, everything checks the box that we need for him this week. Even putting, 66 in strokes game putting, and that's really what we think of the downfall of Colin Morikawa is his putter. So when I talk about Colin Morikawa's putting, it's not like he's missing drastically. He is within an inch of missing these putts, and he's doing the same thing. So I think it's a reading error opposed to a stroke or a speed or a feel. It's a reading error. Whatever he's doing or not doing is allowing him to miss all these putts. So again, it's not like he's blowing these past the hole and giving himself a troublesome, par save or something like that. He is putting them within a few inches and knocking them in. So eventually that will happen. Those will fall for him on a Sunday and he will be in contention. I think this could very well be it. He's won, the name's in the Clark Jug already, Colin Morikawa. Why not make it a two-time here with yourself a decent discount at 9.9, eluding that $10,000 price range?
I love it. Yeah, I think Colin is I mean, he's one of those guys that the only reason I'm gonna find a negative on him this week is because it seems like everybody, rightfully so, is in love with him.
Yes.
But hey, I mean, the betting community has hit pretty well together recently with folks that like Davis Thompson was pretty highly tipped and he won, right? So I think that isn't always necessarily a reason to be afraid of someone, because you're right. I mean, it's impossible. It's like we were just talking about Xander and how you can't really poke any holes in his game. Right now, Colin's the same way. I mean, he's placing in the top 10 like every week, and he's doing absolutely everything perfectly. It's actually a shock if you look back at how well he's played and that he hasn't won yet this year. Not that it's easy to win, obviously. He's just played that well. So I love the pick for sure.
Yeah, and
then I would say for mine,
I was going to mention
the tournaments that
the tournaments that he is, second or right there with. It's Scotty Scheffler above him and Xander Schauffele above him. It's not, he's not really throwing tournaments away. He's getting beaten, is what I'm trying to say here. So that was just another.
And you're right. I mean, those putts are going to start dropping. It's not like he's Scotty on the greens where he's blowing it 3 feet by and then he's missing the Yip style putts. It's really hard to win on the back nine, and you need to make 3 or 4 birdies. And unfortunately, he's had them just burn the edges rather than go in. But everything else is pointing up for sure.
There we go. All right, back to your pick then.
Yeah, I mean, I had Morikawa highlighted as well. I think honestly, I personally don't necessarily love the $9,000 range. I think there's a lot of question marks here in this section. And what I mean by that is that, you're paying up for guys that have never really shown that they can close in a major. If I'm going to spend on, Patrick Cantlay and Tommy Fleetwood, I really, want them to feel like they can win. I love Tommy Fleetwood. I'm about as big of a Tommy fan as there is. But he's never really closed in a major. I mean, he'll close on a Sunday whenever he's in like 30th place, and then he'll finish in the top 5. But unfortunately, he just hasn't really shown that. And like we've mentioned, I really think that there are some guys that can actually win the tournament that have won this year and more recently in the $8,000, $7,000 range. So I've got a lot of question marks in this section. And I think the only other person that I think would be worth throwing a flyer on is Hatton, just because he's really had good form. He's won this year on LIV. He's also another guy, though. He's not made much noise in majors in his career, even before he went to LIV. So it's like when you're spending 90 something hundred on a guy, you want to feel like they have good win equity. And I don't really know if there's a lot of win equity in this section. I'm big in on Morikawa with you. Other than that, it's a bunch of, I think I'm good on passing.
Yeah, I wrote up Tyrrell Hatton at 9.5 and Tommy Fleetwood at 9.3. Don't think there's real win equity there with those two, but I think there's good DFS standing with those guys because, again, in DFS, you're playing 6 guys. Not all 6 guys can win the golf tournament. So if you really believe you're playing Colin Morikawa or Xander Schauffele or Scotty Scheffler that you have in your lineup already are going to win, why not go to these guys here? Hatton, there's a funny thing I see go around quite often. It's like Trail Hatton is basically Tommy Fleetwood. If Tommy Fleetwood won one event 6 years ago and keeps hanging his head on that one victory, and that's Trail Hatton. He won the API like 6 years ago, and that's his crowning jewel for his career. But no, he's been playing some great golf on Live as well recently. Uh,
Back.
yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but it says I'm still recording. So, um, that was weird. Very just cut me out of nowhere and load it back up. Either way,
Yeah, got booted.
either
We
way,
rolled the punches.
let me. I don't know what time. We'll say about 25 minutes. All right. So yeah, the 8K, 9K price range, I'm right there with you. There isn't a ton I'm in love with. Again, as you said, if I'm going to spend up for someone, I'm going to find someone that has real win equity up here. So let's move on to the 8K price range. You talked about how there are some guys here you do love. I mean, this is where I spent most of my betting card time here is the 8K price range and below for this season or for this tournament, excuse me. So Parker, who's your favorite here?
Same. Feel free to cut me off because I like a lot of guys in this section. I think my primary here is Tony Finau. I know we just talked about win equity and that there might not be a lot of win equity in the majors with Big Tone, but I think you're getting an appropriate price for someone that hasn't not necessarily won yet, right? So I think that's where it's worth the stab, and he really fits the mold, I think, of what's needed around here. His off the tee game was lacking. He was given strokes off the tee at the beginning of the season. He's cleaned that up, and he can also take long iron off the tee and still put it out there, equal with the Brian Harmons of the world. So I think if he keeps himself in the short grass, his approach game, which has been stellar for the last like 4 years, will continue to give himself close chances. And with these slow greens, I think it benefits somebody like a Tony Finau because he can be a little bit more aggressive with his putting speed. Not typically known for being a really good putter, but he's someone that can get hot. And I think him being able to be a little bit more aggressive with his lines are going to be great for him this week. So love Tony Finau. And then I've been in on Hideki for the Open since the PGA. I just think that the style of game that he plays is tailor made for this. I put a future in back then for him, and I even doubled up with a little bit more now because since he didn't play well last week, his odds went up a little bit, and I'm dipping my toes right back in the water. But I think that elite short game, elite around the green game, can get hot with the putter, and he's going to hit just about as many greens in regulation as anybody in the field. And in a course that has holes nicknamed the post stamp. I think that's a great recipe to have. So last one I'll mention, I'll leave the fourth guy that I have on my list because I know you probably have him teed up as well, but I think Shane Lowry could be a steal in this section. He's been like kind of sneaky good. I mean, obviously he won that team event with Rory that kind of kick-started him, but he's again just somebody that really fits the link style. It looks like it's going to be pretty nasty weather all the days, so I think he's somebody that can hopefully battle the elements as well. He's not going to be bothered by the weather from where he grew up and learned how to play golf. So I think that Shane Lowry could be worth a shot as well, and those are going to be the three guys that I reference here.
So
I think there's a lot of value though.
We have crossover the first two. Tony Finau is my favorite. I absolutely love Tony Finau this week. You
Nice.
mentioned it. I think the way he's playing, the way he's trending, the direction he's going, and this is just an ideal course, like you said, for Tony Finau. Cleaned up off the tee, an elite approach and iron player, and he's competent around the greens. Putter can be very hit or miss. But like you said, once it gets hot, it's hard to slow him down. So I think Tony Finau, 8-7, real equity there. He's on my betting card as well. Then Hideki Matsuyama is my next guy. Again, I think this is a fantastic course fit. You're going to get an ownership number because, again, as that short-term memory I talked
Yeah.
about, missed the cut last week. People are like, oh, no, he missed the cut at a link-style golf course last week. I'm going to go ahead and move off Hideki. That's not the time to do it. Hideki's most dangerous after a cut, after everyone's out on him. Just out of nowhere, he just pops the Genesis. It was an example this early this season where he just tore up the back nine and ran away with that tournament. I love that play. And then I guess to be different, my final play here is Cameron Smith at 8,900. Started the season out rather poor on Live. Went over to Australia in the fall swing and really, really played some poor golf back home when everyone thought he was going to just stomp his way through those tournaments. but he's back to some decent form. Sixth last week at Andalusia, ninth in Nashville on the Live Golf Tour recently, second in Singapore, second in Hong Kong in the season. But yeah, of course, what do we with Cameron Smith? Best putter in the world, probably best putter at least on Live. So he's always going to bring that to his game. The 2022 winner of this golf tournament, again, not at the exact tournament, but again, the Open, a major on a link style golf course, the 150th, I believe, edition is what he won. So yeah, why can't someone like Cameron Smith, and we're going to discount with him as well at 8,900 because of some poor form on Live and not really showing up to some of these majors. But again, he's still on the younger side. Once he finds things back out, he's going to be, Cameron Smith's a top 10, arguably top 5 player in the world when he is all firing on all cylinders. He proved that a few years ago when he was on the PGA Tour. So I think it's some great value. You mentioned there, you can just go forever in this price range. Pretty much any more of these price ranges, we move our way down here. But yeah, the 8K price range is a good one this week, in my opinion. It's often one I don't enjoy too much. This week, it's a great place to spend some time. 7K price range here, Parker, kicking off here with Akshay Bhatia, 70 or 7,000 flat. Man, there's a lot of guys here as well. Love Bhatia. I know,
Yeah,
again,
this section, you definitely start us off, but I've got 7 names. I'm not going to obviously talk about them, but like, yeah, this section is where I think you can really sink your teeth in.
but yeah, back to Batia, dude. 17th on tour and approach. We know what we're getting there. He's up to 27th in the on tour and putting. When last year he was one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour. That long putter, belly putter, quote unquote, broom handle, whatever we want to call it, has really made a world of difference for him. 33rd in approach, or yeah, approximately the hole from 150 to 200. 30th ball striking. We know what he's done. T2 Rocket Mortgage Classic, T5 Traveler, T16 US Open, T20 Memorial, victory on the season. He's littering them. He's coming, and it could be this week. Also, we got Sahith Theegala at 7,200 here. A fan favorite, though, and he's going to be really highly owned in ownership on DFS as well as on the outright market. But man, talk about a course fit. Theegala is your guy. Only thing I'm a bit worried of, he can get a little wild off the tee at times, but this season he's really toned that down. He's not really as wild as he has been in years past. Man, the approach, the putting, around the green work, the magic he can pull out of nowhere. It's just all there for Sahith Theegala for a fantastic week. Of course, one of my favorites this week is Corey Conners at 7,300. Fourth on tour and approach, seventh in ball striking, 27th off the tee, and 31st in birdie or better percentage. Checking those boxes. T10 last week in Scotland on a link style golf course as well. T27 Travelers, T9 US Open, T20 Memorial, 6th RPC Canadian Open, T26 of the PJ, and T13th Wells Fargo. Some great value there. Not sure where his ownership's going to fall, but it's definitely going to be less than Sahith and Akshay for sure. So yeah, those are my 3 plays this week. And again, like you, I can go forever in this price range because it's value at the yin yang.
Yeah, we're in lockstep again here, man. I mean, I like I mentioned, I had the future on Hideki, but I did put out. I said I was going to wait for the tee sheets to get released so I could see the tee times and the groupings before I put out my full card. But my first 2 clicks of the week, which I put out on Twitter, were Corey Conners and Sahith Theegala. So we're very much in lockstep there. I do think that there is a ton of names. So obviously, I'm going to repeat a couple of names here, but just to list everybody from this section that I think is worth your attention is Bobby Mack, Cam Young, Corey Conners, Aaron Rai, Sahith Theegala, Sepp Straka, Akshay Bhatia. I think all 7 of those guys are in play this week. It really just it shocks me that someone that can continue to put up the numbers in terms of placement and consistency like an Aaron Rai continues to be underplaced like this. He's not even one of the primaries that we spoke of, but he's just been so consistently good, and he obviously is a strong links player. He's won the Scottish Open when he was a full-time DP World Tour member, so he knows how to win in this environment. He's a fantastic play. Bobby Mack might have a little bit of a whiskey hangover, but if there's not a better course fit for Bobby Mack, then I don't know what is, because this is somebody that can put themselves in the fairway with a long iron or that 5 wood, and then take another long iron into the green, and he's been great with that. So I think those names. It's just hilarious though that we mentioned the same ones again. That I do have an outright on Corey as well, and Sahith. So yeah, I think there's a lot of value in here, and I could be convinced of any one of them as the favorite. Cam Young's hilarious to me too because you know he can theoretically win on any course, any condition. He has the talent to pretty much compete with anywhere. It's just the question with Cam Young is can he do it for 4 rounds? So I'll be interested to see if he can do that this week. I think he's trending in the right direction. But yeah, another guy at 60 to 1 that I think could give you some really good return and someone that could definitely win.
Yeah, Jake and I talk often about Cam Young and the mental side of his game, right?
Yeah,
It's got to
he's
be in a pretty poor
uh,
spot because all the talent in the
I know.
world is there, but man, just not being able to get it done. And I think he had all the time I had, I think he had a top 10 here at this tournament a season ago, played some good golf, had some chances recently to get that victory. And I think Cam Young is one of those guys, once that finally, once that victory happens, I think many more to
Oh yeah,
follow. It's going to be that domino effect. He's
yeah,
going to
and I
get
mean,
that one, and it's going to start falling.
and don't forget he also had the backdoor second place to Cam Smith whenever he ended up winning that at the 150th too, which I think that was his rookie season. I mean, he just yeah, it's just a matter of time. And you're right, it's just a mental thing.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, a ton of, I mean, Cam Young down here in this price range is kind of crazy. Just
Yeah,
goes to show the type of value you're getting this week on this tournament, and so many different directions you can go. It's gonna be some fun builds, nonetheless.
and
But
and real quick, but just like if you put covers on the prices and you had an option between Cam Young or Jordan Spieth,
oh yeah,
you know, what are we talking about here? And Jordan Spieth 7,900 this week, So I think it's sometimes funny whenever you compare your options. And obviously you don't have to spend full money to, get the perfect lineup and all that good stuff. But yeah, I just think that he's criminally underpriced, and I had to give that comparison. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Spieth fan, but my guy needs some wrist surgery and he needs some recovery time. He's not right for sure.
that's a good one there. I love when someone tweets out they don't give the name, they give like the stats or the performances of someone, and they're like, which side would you pick?
Right.
And it's always like you'd be surprised who you're going to pick just because of name value alone. So I love something like that in that scenario there. Um, but yeah, Parker, 60 or 6,000, almost messed it up, 6,000 price range this week. We saw that 100 and below. But yeah, who are you playing here in this price range? There's some other good names here as well.
Definitely. I mean, the name that again everybody's going to be on him. The ownership's going to be high because of his recent finishes, but it's insane that he's priced at 6,900 because his odds actually don't match up with that to win the golf tournament. He's matched up with the odds similar to like the Sahith and the Aaron Rise of the world. And that's Sung J M. He's played fantastic this year. Has had a ton of top five finishes outside of the majors. He has missed the cut in all three of the first majors, which everyone's talked about. It is kind of funny that he's been so strong in every other area of the tournament or of the season, except for the major tournaments. So I think this is his time now, though, to get a good placement. And at 6,900, I mean, if you take Scotty, you have room for Sungjae, right? And I think that's the type of value that you're looking for near the bottom of the board to build out your lineup if you do take a Scotty. The other one that I think, he might be a little popular because of his really strong Sunday last week is Siwoo Kim. I'm a big Siwoo fan. It's kind of a similar story with Corey Connors and Tony Finau. These slow greens, I think, are going to allow for the poor putters that would normally struggle on like an Augusta or, um, Pinehurst. They get to be a little bit more aggressive, and it doesn't roll out 6 to 8 feet. It only rolls out 3 feet because the greens are a little slower. So I think that benefits a guy like Siwoo, who is statistically one of the worst putters on tour, but he hits it extremely well. So I think if he gives him enough chances, he could get it rolling. And then the last guy in this section that I think could play well is Keegan. I think Keegan's going to be extremely motivated to kind of come out strong after getting selected as the Ryder Cup captain. This kind of kicks off his 12-month window of trying to get himself into the running for earning it on points, as he says that he will do only, and he won't pick himself as a playing captain. So I think a really strong showing here would be a really good first step for him. And again, at this range, I think it's sometimes worth taking flyers on guys that Keegan hasn't had the best statistical season, but he's a proven winner. He's a proven major championship winner. And he's got a new kind of sense of motivation, I think, kind of coming into this tournament. So I think, he's somebody that can be galvanized by that and play really well. So those are my guys.
Yeah,
What you got,
can't
Nate?
argue with anyone there. It's kind of crazy Sung Jae Im's in this price range
It
for everything
just
you
feels
mentioned.
wrong.
And again, real win equity, Sanjay Im. He's not one of those guys like if he came out in one, you're like, oh yeah, it's not like basically a Brian Thomas or Brian Harmon of last year who was like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa. But Sanjay, like, yeah, yeah, I saw that coming, right? Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I'm right there with you on Siwoo at 6,800. Just when I construct my lineup, so I want to have a nice combination of like some home run hitters, yet some consistency, and that's what Siwoo Kim is. I mean, he makes the cut no matter what. I think he's played 19 events this season. He's missed the cut in just one of them, and that was I think it was the PGA or the US Open. I think it was US Open. He missed the cut there. So again, the longest, toughest challenge of the season, and see what doesn't make the cut there. Who really cares, right? The Siwoo Kim, you mentioned it, is statistically one of the worst putters on tour, and despite losing strokes on the greens literally every single week, he still is littering top 25 and top 30 finishes. So you mentioned that in the event that he does have a spike putting week where he can put it together for two, three, 4 rounds, he's going to skyrocket up some leaderboards. Again, I don't think Siwoo Kim comes out here and wins the 100% playing of the Open, but DFS is a different monster. You don't need to pick 6 winners because physically it cannot happen. So I think Siwoo Kim is a great play because of the consistency in making the cut, getting yourself in the weekend with a 6 for 6 lineup, and going from there. Also like Davis Thompson here in 6,900. Of course, we saw what he did recently, and I think Davis Thompson's a star in the making. He was a top amateur in the world a few years ago. Got that first PGA Tour victory already in demanding fashion. Outside of that, some great performances around it. I mean, T ninth in his debut at the U.S. Open as well. That I mean, not many people talk about that. T second Rocket Mortgage Classic, the John Deere Open victory. I think he has real star potential. But either way, 6,900 for a recent winner, a guy top 10 at the U.S. Open, does fantastic around the green. I think he's third on tour in strokes game around the green, 11th in ball striking, 13th birdie or better, 21st bogey avoidance. I mean, checking those boxes that you need this week, and of course. Got to go with Tom Hoge here, 6,400. If we're talking about a course that has an emphasis on, ball striking and approach play, I mean, there's only one person in the world statistically better on approach than Tom Hoge, and that's Scotty Scheffler. So second best approach player in the world, Tom Hoge, 6,400. Take your chances, especially with the
Good
slower
company to do it.
greens. Yeah, slow greens, accurate off the tee, great from 150 to 200. Um, an above average putter nonetheless. I mean, the only thing about Tom Hoagies is around the greens rather poor, and when I say rather poor, it's abysmal. So you just hope the approach play elevates him to the point where he doesn't have to be around the green much, and the putter, stays true, and he can bury some putts. So that's where I'm going with that price range this week. So let's swiftly move to the final price range here, Parker, 5,900 and below. I'll kick it off here. I have a few DP regulars on here as well as one PGA Tour guy, but kick it off here with Rikua Hashinya, 5,800 Qatar Masters winner this season. He's a guy on the DP World Tour regular, a Japanese golfer. I always talk about this. Somehow I get on this tangent of Japanese golfers, but man, this season Japanese golfers are having. They've had. I think 3 different victors on the DP World Tour. Of course, Hideki at the Genesis, and then Ayaka Fiore just won the Evian Championship. So what a time to be a golf fan in Japan. But Hashino, he barely missed the cut last week of the Scottish Open. Prior to that, T6 BMW, T29 Italian Open, T10 KLM Open. Just a littering of top 10, top 15 finishes on the DP World Tour. And of course, ownership's going to be really well down here in this price range being a DP guy because to your standard player of DFS, they're not too well versed in the DP, I want to assume. So if they're loading this and they see a guy at 58, 5,900, that's a PGA tour name that they've seen opposed to a Rikua Hashinya, they're going to opt for that PGA guy. So I think the ownership's going to be rather well there. Let me bounce hit back here to Ben Griffin, 5,900 and below, or 5,900 exact. T39 last week at the Genesis Scottish Open, not too bad of a performance there. T5 John Deere recently. He's 7th on tour in bogey avoidance, 11th in scrambling, so doesn't lose strokes too often. 38th in putting, 41st birdie or better, 42nd around the green. If there is to be something, it's the driving accuracy for him. He can kind of wayward with his shot. So if he can, tone it down this week and not kind of rip it as much and just try to find some fairways, I think he has a great chance for a strong showing. And my final guy here, my real value play is Jesper Svensson, 5,300, the Swede. T40 T34th last week in the Genesis Scottish Open, won the Poor Singapore Classic earlier this season. But man, he is one of those guys who's just extremely well rounded. He does everything slightly above average. He's not elite in anything really, but he's also not really bad in anything. So I think that will carry him this week. 5,300, not asking for a ton out of this guy. If you have a guy in your lineup at 5,300, he makes the cut for you at, I'm assuming Just for Sense may have a less than 1% ownership on DFS. That'll go a long way for your lineup. So that's where I'm hanging my hat this week in this price range. Parker, who we got?
Yeah, I have three guys. I don't love this range. I think that there's enough value in the 6K and 7K range that you don't necessarily need to go down here. But again, if your intention is to start with Scotty and maybe even grab Xander and Scotty, then you're going to be in this range. So I think Ben Griffin is one of the three that I had selected. So I won't go into his profile, but Mackenzie Hughes is another one that's very similar to Ben Griffin. Kind of the only downside to Mackenzie's game is he needs to make sure that he doesn't get too loose off the tee, but around the green and putting, he's fantastic. So I think he's kind of worth it. He's had some good finishes this season, a couple top tens. So I think, he's in good enough form to take a flyer in the $5,000 range. And then the other guy, which again, I'm kind of shocked that he's in this range, not because he's had a stellar season, but just because he's tailor-made course fit to what they say. I mean, he's literally the number one guy on Data Golf's interactive tool, and that's Brendan Todd. He came in T46 last week at the Genesis Scottish Open. He hits it like 260 off the tee, but he hits every single fairway, gets himself up near the green, and he gets it up and down most of the time, if not every time. So I think if the weather is keeping the scores lower, I think that will be good for a guy like Brendan Todd, who doesn't necessarily have the 20 under in him. If it gets into the Henrik Stenson, Phil Mickelson shootout, Brendan Todd will get left in the dust. But I think if it's close to even, I think he's somebody that can definitely hang around just because he's got such a good short game and he plays from the short grass the entire game or the entire week. So those are my three that I would recommend from this section.
Yeah, he's not just short, he's extremely short. So you mentioned it.
Yeah.
I mean, if we get into a shootout, there's no way he's hanging around because he doesn't have the firepower. He doesn't have the distance to get the chances. But if you're talking about a very poor weather week, someone like Brendan Todd can very well hang around. Not saying he wins the event, but again, in the event of a 6 for 6 lineup into a weekend with some poor weather, Brendan Todd's a good shot there.
Exactly.
All right, Parker, let's talk about some betting cards this week. We always have three categories we talk about here in this segment of the podcast. We have our overall favorite, simply one bet to place this week, who would be and why. Then we have our personal favorite, maybe someone on the community's out on, personal favorite golfer, maybe just a value play, kind of bit of a middle play routinely. And then, of course, long shot, longest odds are on this week. So, Parker, kick it off here. You have one bet to play this week. Who's your favorite and why?
I think I'm going to steal your thunder here, but I just have to go with what I have written down. I mean, I'm going with Colin, man. I think that, you're getting double the odds of, a Xander or Rory, triple the odds of Scotty, right? I think it might even be 4 times the odds of Scotty. And he's been in every tournament he's teed it up at for pretty much the last 3 months. I think, that simple fact alone, along with the value of getting 16, 18 to 1 back on your bet, is like you're missing a layup if you're not putting this on your betting card because he's been that good recently without winning. So Colin's my favorite. Everyone's going to be on him this week. I'm not breaking any news here. So I think that it's so hard to justify taking Scotty at 4.5 to 1 when you think any of these guys could compete. So I'll probably eat my words there and he'll probably end up running away with it. But, I'm going to live and die with my Morikawa shot.
I mean, I'll be boring. I'm going right with you. I mean,
yeah, I knew we were going to say
it seems like the only next logical progression on the PGA Tour is Collin Morikawa back in the win column. It's been a long time coming. He's been littering them. He's been right there. And of course, he's a former Open champion. He's a former multi-time major champion. So he is elite nonetheless. So it's not like we're talking about a guy who is way down there. We're talking about Collin Morikawa, one of the purest ball strikers in the entire world, one of the purest iron players the world has to offer. So, man, I'm right there with you. I love the play, love the value as you mentioned it, and hopefully we see him across the finish line on Sunday. But let's move forward here to our favorite play this week, our personal favorite play. Parker, who are we playing on this one?
Yeah, so I did mention him a little bit earlier, as in putting a future on him during the PGA Championship, and that's Hideki. I think that after last week too, I mean, he was clicking in because we're sickos, so we're locked in on the boards here, and he was as low as I think 35 to 1 before the Genesis Scottish Open last week, and then he missed the cut, and it is a missed cut. I'm willing to give him a break. I think he just didn't have his best week. He lost two and a
It
half
happens.
strokes putting, which happens. But before that, he went T23, sixth, eighth, T35, T38, seventh, sixth, 12th in a win. So he's been so good this year, and getting him, I have it up right now. He's 55 to 1, right now. He's grouped with the likes of Minwoo Lee, Joaquin Neiman, Adam Scott, Cam Young, and don't get me wrong, all those are fantastic players, but Hideki's won this year and he's in fantastic form. I think the reaction from Genesis Scottish Open is warrant the play. And that's going to be my favorite. And I hope he does not let me down this week. Come on, Decky.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. You listed off some names, of course, talented golfers, but they're nowhere near the talent, or I guess I should say the level that Hideki is at this point. He is world class, and Jake and I had this conversation before, and we've listed off the golfers in the world that we think could beat Scotty Scheffler if they had to beat Scotty Scheffler. And when Hideki Matsuyama is on, he's one of them. He's on the short list of probably 4 or 5 golfers in the world who can do it. So you're talking about a guy with that level of talent and that level of win equity. Player down here at 55 to 1, fantastic value, fantastic play, and I'm sure he'll find his way on my betting card before the week's over at this rate. But I'm gonna go with Tony Finau 50 to 1. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's one of these gut feelings, which I should not follow because every gut feeling I ever have in golf betting does not work out for me. But this is a gut feeling that also has some statistical merit to it as well. It's not just a blind shot in the dark. This is a guy who's trending the right direction, who plays a very good golf game. I know the major track record isn't there, but everything else is. I mean, he's won multiple times in the PGA Tour. This is the next hurdle he has to knock down. And I think this very well could be the week for Tony Finau. 50 to 1 is where I grabbed him. But yeah,
And that's a
another,
sharp bet because he's already down to like 35 to 1 on most markets.
yeah,
So, and that's usually a pretty good indicator. And, I think I'm probably even going to add him because I'm at 3 golfers right now. I want to get to 5 before the tournament starts. And he's one, I'm probably going to add him at 35 to 1. And I still like the value, but 50 to 1, good for you. That's a great grab.
and then we have our long shot for the week. That's self-explanatory, Parker. What's the longest odds you're on this week?
Um, I'm going with Sepp Straka here. I was kind of debating between going with Corey Connors, who I know we've mentioned, or Sepp. But Sepp treated me well last year. He won the John Deere leading into the Open, which I hit that and then hit Brian Harman as well. So I'm putting Sepp back on the card. He's currently at 110 to 1 for 8 places on Bet 365. So I think that's definitely worth a good stab for somebody who, again, it's crazy to me that he's over 100 to 1 when he has. I'm just going to quickly count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 top tens this season alone. He has 6 top tens,
Yeah,
and he's 110 to 1. And he doesn't have to necessarily do anything special. I think this is a type of tournament where if the weather prevails, like we've mentioned, there's going to be a lot of guys that are within 4 or 5 strokes. As the weekend rolls around, it's going to be hard to separate yourself if the wind and the rain persists, which it looks like it will. So, yeah, I'm rolling with Seth. I think he's great value at 1 to 1. I'm looking forward to a good week from him.
and I think he was in that littering of T2s last year,
Yeah, he
among with
was
Tom
T2 to
Kim and
Brian.
Sepp and
Yep. I
those
mean, granted,
guys.
like you said earlier, it was I think they were like 5 shots back, so no one was really
Still, it was a
in it.
T2 at a major,
But
so
good paycheck, that's for sure.
can't take that away from him. But no, Sepp Straka, you mentioned it, man. Once the weather gets going, he plays a great golf course or great uh, golf game. He can keep that ball close to the ground and rip them with the best of them. I think that's very crucial. I mean, uh, a lot of these, I think you kind of say a lot about these European guys who've grown up playing these type courses in this type of weather. But a great play, 110 and 1's a great value. So I'm gonna go with another. I want to say another Scandinavian since Austria isn't Scandinavia, but I'm going Alex Noren 130 to 1's where I have him. He was kind of the last guy
Amazing
into the field,
price.
I think. He snuck his way in there, but T10 last Genesis Scottish Open, so some great form as well, some link style. He missed back-to-back cuts going into that Scottish tournament, which wasn't really his MO for the rest of the season. He was like a Siwoo Kim, like a guaranteed cut and flirt with the top 10, top 25 type of guy. Third on tour in scrambling. He's fourth in bogey avoidance, sixth around the green, 15th sand saves, 36 driving accuracy, 40th ball striking. Again, if we get down to a shootout, I don't think Alex Noren's hanging around and winning this golf tournament. But in the event that some weather, as I think there's at least a 50% chance of precipitation on each of the
Every
four
day.
days with some increased
Yeah.
winds. Of course, coastal winds getting, that doesn't count for that in the forecasts. So I think we're gonna have some pretty poor weather. And I think someone like Alex Noren, who hits the ball extremely well, may not be super long, but it's extremely well, plays some great irons, a confident around the green, and a good putter. I think this is a tournament. Again, I keep talking about. We saw Brian Harman win the Open last year, doing the same exact things that someone like Alex Noren's very good at. So this is the major for these type of guys to win. They're getting kind of phased out of the U.S. Opens, and the PGA Tours are turning more into a U.S. Open than not. And of course, Augusta is all about you have to have a certain type of skills to win at the Masters or your SOL. So this is a tournament where these shorter guys, these fairway finders, may you say, can have some success. So Alex Noren 130 to 1 was some fantastic value. I mean, at one point this season there was tournaments where he was like 18 to 1, 20 to
Yeah.
1. Now we're playing him 130 to 1. I know it's a little bit different at the Open, but still he's a very talented golfer with a fantastic season and a fantastic skill set for this golf course.
I like it. I think, yeah. I mean, Noren has it's shocking when you can grab a number at that for somebody who's been as strong as he's been this year. So good pick. I like that one.
All right. Anything else here about the Open Parker before we hop forward?
No, man. I mean, it's like a bittersweet symphony. We're coming towards the end of the season, but there is nothing better than like waking up. I mean, I'm in mountain time, so it'll be a little bit earlier for me. But even on Friday or Saturday, I'll be able to stay up to midnight and watch some of the guys tee off the next day. So I'll be up bright and early, 3 a.m., drinking my coffee, 4 hours of watching it before the birds are even up. I can't wait.
That's what I love about the DP World Tour so much is, most days I get up, 4:30 in the morning for work, or I have a farm to take care of before I go to work. But like you said, turn on your pot of coffee while you turn on the TV for a few minutes and there's some golf on. Nothing
Best.
better. And you can do it now with some of the world's best, opposed to sometimes I turn it on in some, random country and some random guys on the television. But either way, it's
It's
fantastic.
golf.
And I remember so 2 years ago, my youngest was born, and my wife's like, "Oh, do you mind staying up with him in the middle of the night so I can get some sleep so we can trade off?" I'm like, "I'll do this for you." And then I'd go out there with the baby, and the Open will be on in the background, and we're just
Yep.
rocking out to it. So
I
she thought
love
I was
that.
doing her a favor, but she was doing me a favor. I had an excuse
Yeah.
to stay
Hey,
up.
it's a win-win. That's just a win-win. But everyone's happy. And that's
Oh,
great.
geez, yeah, that's fantastic. But we do have one more golf tournament to talk about real
Yep.
quick before we do hop off here. It's the Barracuda Championship, one of those unique formats of the PGA Tour season. I mean, so the Barracuda Championship comes out with a modified Stableford scoring. So essentially, what it is, it's just another way to. There's nothing really different. They just associate a different point value per score on the whole, and it's the highest score wins this week opposed to lowest. So I have it right here. It's an Albatross is 8 points, Eagle 5, Birdie 2, Par 0, Bogey -1, and Double Bogey -3. So again, it adds an emphasis to your Eagles where you get 5 points opposed to a boat or birdie that's two. So it's just a more unique way, I guess, to score a golf tournament.
I think it definitely rewards a little bit more of the risk that you would have to play
Yes.
away from, just because I mean, an eagle being 5 points and a singular bogey only being -1, you're more inclined to aim at every pin, because if you hit it long a little bit and you don't get your up and down, it's not going to kill you. Where if you stick it tight and make eagle, that can really benefit you. So I agree. I think it's just a weird way of scoring, but I do think it kind of frees these guys up a little bit to attack the pins, because the singular
Yeah.
bogey is only a -1. so it's not terrible.
And I think it's a nice fresh breath of air as we're
Yeah,
grinding it out here at this part of the season with the FedEx coming
great.
up and playing opposite the Open. I think once the Open's finished and you're not done with golf yet, and you turn it on in the afternoon because it's out in California, so I'm on the East Coast, so I get an extra whatever up until 8, 9
Yep,
p.m., 10 p.m. my time. We're gonna watch it. So it's a nice fresh breath of air. And it also allows for people who are far back to really be in it down to the wire. I mean, you pour in
absolutely.
two bogeys on the back, or on the final round, and that's 6 points better than anyone else. It's easy to make us round. Um, but yeah, it's a unique one. It's also one of those DP World Tour, PGA Tour co-sanction events, I believe, that
Yep,
plays opposite the Open. Very few DP World Tour guys kind of sticking around. A lot of them were here last week for what was the ISCO Championship. A lot of them have already withdrawn from this event and headed back overseas. There are still a few around here, but it's a chance for the unsung guys, the PGA Tour, to have their chance to win, getting a 2 year exemption on tour without having to worry about their card,
absolutely.
or like a DP World Tour guy who may not be top 10 at the end of the season gets his card, or a Corn Ferry guy just wins his tournament, gets his card. I mean, it's a life-changing event for a lot of these guys. That makes it for some great golf as well. I mean, we saw Harry Hall last week, who's been a guy who's been back and forth of the PGA Tour to Corn Ferry and just having some really bad years, some good years. He had a great year in Corn Ferry Tour, but then goes on and wins that. Doesn't have to worry about the grind fest of the Corn Ferry back to the PGA for 2 years. So I can't imagine the relief that he feels in doing so. But that's what we get this week as well. When I wrote this article, I said it was headlined by Eric Van Rooyen. He has since withdrawn from this event. So hopefully you guys played your action earlier, because he was the favorite to win at like 16 to 18 to one of that range. So it definitely has shifted because of that. Keith Mitchell now kind of the favorite to win. Michael Fulvorson, Sam Stevens, Taylor Pendrith, some of the names highlighted in this field. And some of the DP guys, Alex Fitzpatrick, of course, fan favorite Matt Fitzpatrick's brother, Gavin Green, Andy Sullivan, Fabrizio Zanotti, Giannis Vierman, Paul Waring, Dylan Fratelli, just a few of the DP guys here this week. Of course, Akshay Bhatia, defending champion, used this event a year ago for his maiden PGA Tour victory. Again, came from behind on Sunday to win this. He was kind of out of it and had a fantastic Sunday, got a hot putter, and kind of stormed back and won this event. Although it was kind of lower scoring or higher scoring, I don't know how to,
Yeah,
than than we've seen some of these past years, but he was able to get that done. Chev Reavie, the most recent winner of this event, that's also in this field, 2022. I was going to say Royan won here in 2021. He's out. And then Richie Werneski in 2020. Those are the only um, editions played here at the old Greenwood course at, what is it, the excuse me, I know this is some great content here. The Greenwood course at Tahoe Mountain Club in the Reno Tahoe region of California. A lot of Tahoes and Renos and stuff, but um, par 71, 7,480 yards, sits 6,000 feet above sea level. So the ball carries much further than it won it other way. So 74, 7,500 yards. Plays much shorter than that. Elevation allows for long hitters off the tee to go even further. You mentioned it, attacking the pins, long bombers, bomb and gouge, just trying to get as many of those points as possible. Adds for some excitement down the stretch. A lot of risk reward type of golf shots happening this week. Some excitement that we wouldn't see elsewhere because of what the scoring format has. Because you mentioned it, an Eagles 5, single bogeys -1, or even a doubles only -3. So I mean, why not go for that Eagle if you have a chance of only losing 3 points and gaining five? Old Greenwood is largely tree lined with water and play on 6 holes, adding to the importance of accuracy off the tee. There hasn't been stat tracking at this event, and of course, so historical data isn't really um, available outside of the naked eye and other Zach Nicholas designs. As a scoring, the winning scores here at Old Greenwood have gone 39 points to Berneski in 2022. 50 points was the record to Royan in 2021. Ches Reavie, 43 points in 2022. And last year, Batia, 40 points in 2023. All about the risk reward this week. Weather looks ideal. 0% chance precipitation across all 4 days. Low winds, high temperatures. Some great golf here in the mountains of California. Um, but yeah, that's about it. Parker, anything you want to add here about this tournament before we move forward?
no, I think, you know, You hit the nail on the head with the phrase. It's a breath of fresh air. Sorry. But no, I think it's just a good change of pace. It's on late at night, opposite of the Open. I think for um, a lesser tournament, for lack of a better word, I think they set it up really well so that you can kind of just
They do.
casually watch it in the evenings. And it's interesting because guys can be aggressive like we talked about. So no, I think it's a really good kind of cool down after the Open for the entire week.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm more inclined to, as a casual fan, tune into this event than say like the ISCO Championship of last week or something like that, where a different scoring format, just
Yep, change
just
it
a
up.
whole thing, just a more casual viewing pleasure. Then, of course, I think it's more appealing to more casual fans in this nature as well, without them noticing all the big names and cheering on the Scotties and the Xanders just because they notice those names. So we'll see what comes of it. But Parker, I have four guys on my betting card this week. How many do you have in front of you there?
I got two. I've got
Two.
two.
All
Yep.
right. Well, I'll list my two. You do two, and I'll do two. How about that? Make it an
Love it.
easy split
Cool.
here. So I'm gonna go back to the Chan Kim Well at 40-1 that I was on last week. He's kind of one of these merchants of these lesser field events, having some great performances throughout the season. Um, uh, T12th John Deere Classic, T6 Corliss Punta Cana, T8th Mexico Open, T14th American Express, T14 Valero Texas Open. Final round 9 under last week at the ISCO Championship, placed in the top 10. So yeah, I mean, this is a guy who he's currently ninth on tour in birdie or better. He's 14th tee to green, 15th bogey avoidance, 16th scrambling, 20th approach, 22nd green regulations. Putting can be an issue, but he gained 0.49 strokes last week on the greens at the ISCO. So yeah, just a guy that he's a very popular name though when it comes to these lesser field events. He's going to pop in stats based models most times. He was on the dreaded Wheel of Death from the Golf Tracker last week. I think he may have been number one or somewhere around there, but he's always going to pop there because he does so. But I think that final round -9 last week at the ISCO can really propel him and get that victory. He's been around for a while. It's not like he's a newbie by any nature. I'm going to go with Mac Meisner at 40-1 as well as kind of my co-favorites. T16th last week at the ISCO. He also placed T20 at the John Deere in the start prior. Also T5 Charles Schwab, T13 Myrtle Beach, T10 Valero Texas Open. 21st tee to green. He's 43rd bogey avoidance, 49th in sand saves, or 49th in approach and scrambling, 50th sand save, 51st green regulation. So a lot of great stats here. I mean, the worst of the stats here I have listed of I think 10 stats I used. He's 102nd in stroke gain putting, which is just about average. So in a field like this where we saw someone like Akshay win last year who was a very poor putter, being average and then being carried by the rest of your game, I think is a great approach here for Mac Meister. And I mean, he even shot a 59 once on the Corn Ferry Tour. So I think he has the ability to go low or high this week. And I like that for him. All right. Who's your two guys here, Parker?
Yeah, I like those pick. I'm big fan of Mac. I think not just this week alone, but I think moving forward he's going to be a fun guy to kind of
Yes.
follow on the tour. So big fan of his. I like those two picks. I've got two guys that are pretty well known names for I think a secondary tournament. Mark Hubbard, one of my fellow Coloradoans. Um, he missed his first cut of the year last week at the Genesis Scottish Open, which again, you're kind of getting a little bit of a break on somebody that was coming in with extremely good form, has had a really strong season. I think if he finishes T25 at the Scottish Open, he's probably one of the two or three favorites in this tournament. So I think, he's also somebody that can definitely really go low. I think, again, you're kind of looking for guys that can be those flashes in the pan at tournaments like this. And I think, he can get really hot with the putter and take it low. So I'm looking at Mark Hubbard at 30-1. And then my second guy is the guy who honestly he had a pretty poor start to the year, and it's Beau Hossler. But over the last like 6 weeks or so, he started to shape up as made three of his last four cuts. Missed the cut at the PGA and the U.S. Open, but had a T4 at Myrtle Beach Classic. So he's I think one of those guys that when the lights are their brightest, he might not be there yet. But I think for some of these lesser tournaments, he kind of steps up on the first tee and feels like I should be one of the top dogs here. He came in sixth at this tournament last year, so he does like the format. has had good course history, or tournament history, I should say. So Bo Hostler, who's currently at, I just saw him 35-1, but I did nab him at 40-1 before he dropped down. So those are my two guys that I'm going with. Who are your last two there, Nate?
Yeah, I like those guys. I think Bo Hostler is kind of a quote unquote elite talent of the group. He's kind of one of those
Yeah,
like untapped potentials type of guys. Like we know he can play some fantastic golf. It's just can he put it together for 4 days? When it comes to this field, I think he's one of the top talented golfers in the field. I do like that pick as well, but I have to go with one of my DP guys, this week. So I'm going with Giannis for Veerman, 66-1. He's an American that plays full time on the DP World Tour. But T10 last week at the ISCO Championship. He's a guy that I've played a few times at the DP World Tour as well, where he's gone T10 KLM Open, T8 European Open, T8 Volvo China Open, T2 Hero Indian Open. That's just a few of his events dating back to March. Currently 23rd on the DP World Tour in green relations, 32nd approach, 33rd tee to green, and 50th in putting. He's a guy who can go low. That's what I really like about him. He can really have those huge rounds that, say, Sunday, he needs to make something happen. He can really pour them in with the best of them. So I really like that. 66-1 was a big number as well. So I grabbed that. And my long shot this week is Pat Desire, 100-1. A guy who I've been on a few times over the season in tournaments. Made the cut last week at the ISCO Championship, but that's about it. Nothing really to write home about. Recent form, not the best, but T20 Rocket Mortgage, T10 Myrtle Beach, T24 the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, T23 Corliss Punta Championship, fourth on tour in green regulations, 11th approach, 16th birdie or better. So he gets the birdies. He gets himself in position to score a lot of birdies, but his problem is his putting, 153rd in putting. Of course, if your name is Pat Desire, 100-1 in this field, and you're top 10 on tour and top five, excuse me, in green regulations, something's not adding up, right? So it's really that putter. He's also 108th off the tee, so he kind of get wearing with that. 101st in scramble, he can lose some strokes here or there. But man, elite approach play, elite green regulations. I think this is a guy who, in this scoring format, who do really well. And again, a big number, 100-1. Couldn't leave that one out there.
I love it. Yeah, I think you're right. It is funny though whenever you say those stats out loud that he's fifth on tour in greens and regulation. It's wild to hear that combination, but it just proves the point that if he can have even just like a decent week with the putter,
Yes.
your man's going to be in it. So I love it.
It doesn't need to come out and put lights out.
No,
Putt to
yeah,
even, and
that's
you should have
even.
yourself a fantastic event.
Yeah,
Nonetheless, yeah, that's fourth on tour and regulations. That's among the likes of Scotty Scheffler, Xander
yeah,
Schauffele, those type of guys. So what's
that's
going
a
on,
good trivia
Patton?
question.
Let's figure it out. All right, Parker. Well, I appreciate you hopping on here with me on
Of
this
course,
fine Monday afternoon or evening, I guess, as we talk the final major of the season. I can't believe it's already this point of the year, midway through July. The playoffs are right around the corner. I mean, PGA Tour season will be finished before we know it. But again, man, you're always there when I need you in a pinch, and you hop right on willingly, and
of course.
you're always great and fun to talk to and very knowledgeable. So again, I extend my appreciation to you, Parker.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on, Nate. Always good to be here if you need someone to join and talk the best sport in the world. So I'm looking forward to, like I said, waking up at, crack of dawn and drinking coffee for 6 hours while, then I'll start my work day because that's what we do on the open week. So I can't wait.
Fantastic stuff there. But one more time, Parker, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, appreciate that. You can find me on Twitter or X. The handle is psmith412. On my profile, you'll see a link to a personal tracker where I track all my picks, units, and all that good stuff to make sure that you know how I'm allocating my funds for the weeks. So check it out. Appreciate you, Nate.
Awesome, awesome. You can follow myself, Nate, on Twitter at WKF Nate. Be sure to follow We Know Fantasy on all forms of social media at We Know Fantasy. Be sure to visit We Know Fantasy.com for some more fantasy sports content. Until next time, guys, we'll see you.